a missed cable over here and a miscrossed cable over here. This cable needs some serious fixing, and we can do it without unraveling the rest of the project. All we need is 2 double-pointed needles in the same size as the working needles and a few locking stitch markers or safety pins. In the right side row that happens after you notice the mistake with the cable, work to the stitches of the cable that needs to be fixed. Then stop, and first thing we do is mark the cable crossing rows. We do it with the locking stitch markers or safety pins. When the cable is crossed but in a wrong direction, then we look for the holes that usually happen at the sides of the cable. They're right here. You can't miss them. And place the marker on the strand that is on top of this hole. So this is the strand that represents the cable crossing row. So I go right here and place my marker on that strand that is on top of this hole. If the cable is missed, so you didn't cross it at all, then we have to guess where the cable crossing row will be. The easiest way to do it is to look at the nearby cable and kind of track the row to find again the strand that would be at the top of the kind of hole that would have been here if we remembered to cross the cable, and then place the marker over here. We're gonna double check that this is the row that we need a little bit later, but for now just do your best guess and place the marker over there. And then we're gonna do something scary, but at the same time very exciting. We're gonna unravel everything up to the lowest mistake. If you missed just one cable, then it will be easier, but if you did a boo-boo like I did, then you will have to do a lot of unraveling. So we slip the stitches of the cable off the left needle like this. That's the scary part. Now comes the good part. So we pull the strand that is at the back. That's usually the easiest way to do it. Pull it to the back gently. You don't want to really tug on it, but pull it gently to unravel the stitches of the cable. You can do it with your hands, or you can use a needle and kind of do it like this. It's totally up to you. And unravel everything. So I prefer to do it with my hands. It feels kind of better to me. Unravel everything up until you get to the row that we marked with the marker as our cable crossing row. That would be over here. And then unravel that row as well. So I pull, and now I'm really gentle because I don't want to ruin the stitches. So I pull on this last strand, the one that has the marker. And now we need to make sure that this is the marker, this is the crossing row that we really mean to do, and we didn't miss it by one row. If you're working back and forth, then the easiest way would be to count the strands. And because we do it in the right side row, the number of strands would be an even number. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. See? So I have 10 strands. That means I did a pretty good guess, and I placed the marker on the row that is the cable crossing row. If you're working in the round, then this trick doesn't work because there are no wrong side rows in working in the round, right? So we always work right side row, so it will be hard to guess. But we can use another trick. We can count the rows from the previous cable. So we find again this hole of the previous crossing, and we insert the needle into that hole, and then place the needle vertically, kind of spreading the threads over here. And the number of threads that we see, in my case it's 6, it's going to be the number of rows that separate two cables. And that's about right because my cables are crossed in every 6th row. Now that we are sure that that's it, we unraveled everything and we are in the right spot for crossing, we pick up stitches. We pick half of the stitches, the first group of stitches that's going to be crossed on one double pointed needle, and the other half on the other double pointed needle. In my case, it's going to be 2 and 2 stitches. If the cable is crossed to the right, then we place the right needle in front, or the left needle in front of the right needle, like this. If the cable is crossed to the left, then we do the opposite and place the needles like this. So it's easy to say because you will see which way the stitches are going, and then you will see right away whether it's the right direction or not. So once you decided where the stitches are going, then slip the stitches to the other ends of the double point needle, like this, so that they are cross. And then slip the stitches to one needle so that they all stay on the needle that's going to be in your left hand, like this. So now we did the unraveling part and the crossing part. And now we have to deal with all this mess that we've just created. And we're going to deal with it strand by strand. So we take the first strand that is the closest to the picked up stitches. See, it's going to be this one. And it's easy to determine when you look at the edge and kind of open it up. And then you will just easily grab the strand that is the closest. And it is also the strand that has the marker on it. So now we can safely remove the marker because we don't need it anymore. We know this is our crossing row and we are well prepared for making it, for knitting these stitches. So I'm gonna push these ones to the back so you can clearly see what I'm doing. Now I hold this strand as usual and knit the stitches of the cable one by one. You can do it with the yarn in your right hand or your left hand, but no matter which hand you use, at some point the yarn will be too tight because it doesn't come from a ball. It's a limited length, right? So it gets too tight, usually when we come to the last 2 stitches of the cable. And that's when we need to change the approach. So instead of knitting stitches as usual, we're gonna place the strand on the left needle so that it stays at the in front of the first stitch on the left needle. And then we're gonna insert the tip of the right needle into that stitch from right to left and push this stitch over the strand and off the needle, like this. And then slip the stitch purlwise without twisting it from the left needle to the right needle. So that's how we knit the stitches that are the last stitches of the cable and that are hard to knit in a different way. So we do the same thing. So I have still this bit of that strand and I place it on the left needle and then I work the last stitch of the cable in exactly the same fashion, just passing the stitch over the strand and off the needle and slipping the stitch to the right needle, like this. And now we slide the stitches to the other end of the same double pointed needle. The empty needle is now in our right hand and we repeat the same process. So we look for the strand, and like I said, it is easier to do when you open up the edge, the unraveled edge. Be very careful when you look for a strand. You don't want to miss it because otherwise it will be hidden at the back, and when you finish rebuilding your cable, then it will be just staying there as an ugly loop over here, and you will have to undo that portion again and redo it. So no one wants to do that, right? So we'd better be very careful when we pick the strands. And for me, the next strand will be this one. So I push the other strands to the back and same way, knit the stitches of the cable until the strand becomes too tight, and then I place it on the left needle and make the stitches in a different manner. Don't try to make the stitches tighter because we don't want to mess up the tension of the cable. So try to have your regular tension and rebuild the stitches, the rows of the cable one by one using each strand that we just unraveled. When your next strand has a stitch marker on it, that means that it is the next crossing row. Remember to cross the other cable if you had two cables to fix. And we do it in exactly the same fashion. We divide the stitches, then cross them, slip them on the needle that is in our left hand, and then remove the stitch marker and use this strand to rebuild this row. And when you rebuild the last row, you have no more loose strands over here. That means we came back to our working needles and we simply work the stitches of the cable. Because the size of the needle is the same, so we could do it directly from the double pointed needle without slipping the stitches to the working needle. And then we continue to work on the project as if nothing ever happened to our cable. Because we use needles in the same size as the working needle, see, it does not affect the tension of this section that was rebuilt. If you do notice that there is something off with the tension, you can easily fix it when you pull this section sideways and then along the direction of knitting. And then you will have a perfectly nice cable right here where it used to be messy just 10 minutes ago. To get the full PDF version of this and other tutorials published this year, consider joining club at tenroseday.com/club2023. Happy knitting, my friend. I'll talk to you in the next tutorial.